Hey y'all, we're going to have a little discussion today about grapevine pruning. I'm going to show you two different techniques that I do. One is called cane pruning and the other is called spur pruning. So let's take a look at that. This right here is a cane pruned variety. And this one, I've already pruned these, but because for saving time, I'll show you what I did. This had lots of canes coming out, and you can see where I cut them off down here, lower down, and some up here. So it had lots of canes that grew from last year, and this year those are called the 1-year-old canes. Here's the 1-year-old cane that I kept, and here's another that I kept that came out from the top here. This is the older trunk that they came from. So you can keep this right here is a 4-year-old plant. So since it is older, I'm going to let this go up to 60 buds. You could have one 1-year-old cane coming out with 60 buds, or you could have two with up to 60 buds. This right here is a bud there. So you just count them. This is where the cane started. So I'll start 1, 2, and then go all the way down. So I've got 30 on each, or you can have between 1 and 4 is typically what people do, canes, but count all the buds. You can have like 1 with 60, 2 with 30, or 4 with 15 buds. That's what you would keep. These right here I kept cut off at the end, and there is little buds on both sides. So those buds will grow a cane out of each of those this year. Then next year, those will be the 1-year-old canes that I will select from to be the fruiting canes for next year. So that's why you leave some of these. I might cut a couple of these. I've got quite a few that I left. What are you doing? She's mad because I ain't playing with her. But that's how you cane prune. Let's go over here to the spur prune. Biscuit, don't you even think about it. Don't you think about it. So this one right here went plumb hog wild last year. I need to cut it back some, because if you have too many spurs, buds going on and too much fruit, your fruit quality is going to go down. It's going to be much smaller fruits, and they're not going to taste as sweet. So you kind of want to keep that same concept of not having too many buds producing fruits. This one, first, before we go any further, it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 big cordons coming out from it. I'm going to downsize this year. I did get a lot of fruit last year, but I want to downsize it and have it more organized and structured, because it was one big hot mess and it was hard to get into. So this year I am going to probably take that post out, and I'm going to redo that one. I got to pull it out, bring it out so it'll be more straight. I had a neighborhood youngin that came and grabbed this right here and hung on it, and it uprooted that, so I have to refix that. And I'm going to put some cattle panel in between here for these grapes to be trained to. So having said that, with this, I'm going to cut this down to 2 main cordons. One of them is going to be, what do I do with it? This one right here. See all these spurs coming from it? So I'm going to train that out, and there's going to be a cattle panel along here. This is going to get put in the ground. I'm just reusing stuff. So I'll have that cordon coming this way, and I'll keep one more to go this way, which might end up just being the one I've already got here. Now, whenever I prune this, the way you spur prune is you want your spurs to be a hand width between each one. So this right here is perfect. This right here is good. So that's how you want it, like that. And you'll have your older growth. This is 2 years old, and this is the newer growth that came out from last year. So now this is the 1-year-old spurs. So on these 1-year-old spurs right here, these were much longer, and I cut them back to have 1 to 2 buds. And you can see that they are lighter in color from the older spur from last year. So these are going to be the fruiting spurs for this year. You'll have from each little bud right there coming out, if it will focus. That's where you're going to have growth come out with your grapes. So you may have to thin some of these out if you have too many, to help keep the quality of fruit good. But that's how we do that. So this one right here, 1, 2, and that one, 1, 2. So that's how that works. So we'll be cutting out and leaving only 2 main cordons for that one. And anything growing down here will be cut off and thinned out. Like right here, I'm just gonna go ahead. I was quickly pruning, but I'll end up probably here in a couple of weeks. Right now it's early February, but in a couple of weeks we'll come in when the weather starts looking like it's gonna shift more warmer. And before that happens, I'll cut all these down to the base down here at the bottom. You can see where I've cut the other ones, but that's how you spur prune. And if they do start getting crowded, say like right through here, if this is one that I kept, like they're too close, I might end up like cutting the middleman out to save more room in between the 2 spurs, so they'll have more room for growth. You want airflow to come through. This one right here is also a cane pruned variety. You can tell the difference between this cane and the spur pruned ones. And depending on the type of grapes that you get, there's tons of different types of grapes, and they each have their own preference. You can look them up and see if it needs to be spur pruned or cane pruned. But this cane pruned one, I've left 2 of these, and I'll tap those off at 30 buds per cane. And there's your buds. And from those buds we'll send out this year's growth on these 1-year-old canes. It will send down some growth, and then you'll have your fruiting from each of those. And again, on this one, like that one over there, I left some, like right here, there's a bud right there that will form a new cane for next year. That will be next year's cane growth, and these right here too. So I have several that I can pick from next year, and to end up leaving anywhere between 1 and 4 canes on the cane prune type grapes. So now let's go look at some younger grapes that I'm starting to show you how that process works. So these are the new babies. Whenever you get these from the store, they're going to look like this. And you can see the buds on it right there. That's where the growth's going to come out. These are going to be a cane prune variety. So the first year, I'm going to let this grow up and go wild. It might send several shoots out. And when this grows up and grows wild, next year I'll come back and I'll cut everything out except one very strong main trunk. So after that first year of growth, you'll top that off, and then the following year I'll let 2 cordons come out from that. So let's step back a little bit and kind of show this. So after that first year, I'll let it grow, then I'll cut it down the second year to about that high. And then the third year, I'll keep 2 of those cordons to grow out with, with it being young, I might only do like maybe 10 on each cordon for that first fruiting year. The next year, as I cut back and select 2 more 1-year-old cordons, I might let 15 on each one, and you work your way up. You don't want to like let it be a full 60 bud cordon that first fruiting year. Let it work up to it so the plant will be strong and get stronger as it gets older. So that's how you train that if it were to be cane pruned from a baby. If I were to train this as a spur pruned variety, I would let that first year growth come up, go wild. The second year, I'll cut everything out except 1. I might leave 2, like a secondary backup guy cane, but you want at least 1 big trunk to come up. The year after that, you'll still have your cordons. It'll kind of be the same way as if you were cane pruning, except every year following, you're going to cut those back, those spurs back, the 1-year-old growth from those new spurs every year down to 1 to 2 buds like the previous spur prune one that I just showed. So every year you'll build up and let more and more spurs produce, but don't let it get up to the full 60 that first year. Like I said, you want that plant to get stronger every year. It's not going to get stronger if it's got 60 buds growing the first year. You want to work your way up to it. So this is a quick drawing demonstration. So here's your trellis system, and here is your new little plant right here. That first year, it's going to send up a bunch of these vines. You'll have quite a few coming up, and they'll be going kind of wild and going every which way. For that whole first year, just let it grow and be happy. Keep them all kind of trained up to this central part. Then the next year, you're going to have that, and it will have sent out some cordons. Actually, it will send out quite a few cordons from all these buds. You might have some coming out from here, from here, from here. You'll have all kinds of them. Keep the top 2 strongest ones. You might have several coming out the top here. So when you're done on that second year, after 2 years of growth, you'll have your main trunk that you kept. You'll have 2 main cordons that you kept. Cut everything off down here. And from these cordons that during the next year's growth throughout the summer, they might fruit, they might not, but from each of these little buds from it, you're going to have crazy growth coming out like this all over. You might even have some more coming back from here. You can kind of keep that trimmed down throughout the summer if any comes out through here. And these may get really super long like that. So you're going to have that kind of action going on, and you might have some fruit here and there during that first fruiting season. Let it do its thing. The next year, you're probably going into your 3rd growing year, and you will have pruned it to look like this before spring sets in. So you'll have your main trunk, all this growth that came out, you will have whacked all that down, leaving 1 to 2 buds on each of those, okay? So that's what it's going to look like, and these will be the long ones, but you'll whack it all the way down to 1 to 2 buds. And then from those buds, you'll have this type of growth from each and every one of these buds. So it's going to get even more crazy, fuller, okay? And you're going to have fruit coming from them. And the next year after that, these, say this is your buds that fruited from that year, and you're into the next year, each one of these is going to form more like that, each one of them. And they're going to be super long, and you're going to have fruit on them. And then the following year after that, this is how you build up your spurs. The following year after that, you're going to cut these down, the 1-year-old growth from the previous year. Each one of these you'll cut down, and to 1 to 2 buds. So we kept a little bit here, 1 to 2 buds from that year. That's going to be where that fruit's coming from, okay? And each one of these, during that 4th year of these new buds, they will form from each of those little buds more long stems like that, okay? So during that 4th year, and then from each of those, you're going to get fruiting because they're 1-year-old canes from those spurs. And then you're going into your 5th year, you'll cut those back of that new growth. And each of these will have, you'll leave 1 to 2 buds of those. You say I cut this back, and as you can see, year after year after year, those spurs will get bigger and bigger and take up more space. And that's where I was talking about having that hand width in between, because these guys are going to be crowding each other out. So, you know, and you're getting into your 5th, 6th year, you might have to cut out this middleman because this one and this one is just getting so big, and you're going to have all kinds of buds coming out from them, that you're going to have to cut out that middleman to make room for these two guys to continue on, and so forth. After they get so old, you may even want to consider allowing, because every year that you're cutting back, you're going to continue to get growth down through here and maybe some coming down here, and you're just, you know, when you're pruning this top part, you're just going to have to cut all that out. Just keep cutting it out every year and just focus on your main spurs every year. But if they start getting too big or too crowded, you might want to consider, because you might have another little cane coming out from here, a young one, you might want to consider keeping, you know, one at a time, the strongest one, and say if this side looks more rough, or this cane looks more rough, or cordon, I'm sorry, these are cordons when you're spur pruning, you might have to whack it completely off, just remove it after, you know, 6 years or 7 years or however many that it starts looking rough, and let this new guy come out, start growing, and train it over. And after it gets established and starts going through all this process, you might want to let another one go, because this guy's probably going to start getting old. Let another one grow from up top, and then train it to be the new cordon. And every year you'll continue to train these spurs back more and more. Like, I forgot these. 2 buds, 2 buds. Cut them out. So that's what it's going to end up looking like if you're spur pruning. Cane pruning is going to look a little different, because you're not going through all this process of training it into your main cordons and then going back every year and training those into spurs and keeping the 1 year growth from the previous year, cutting that back to 2 buds on each time, and it's going to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger with 2 buds, and you're going to keep trimming those back every year. The cane pruning is going to look a little different, because you're going to start out with your new guy. It's going to send out some crazy new growth. You might have, you know, 4 or 5. It might go crazy. You might end up, heck, with, I don't know, 10 of them, who knows. But that next year, you're going to only keep the strongest guy, top it off, you know, at the top. Some people might top it off about right here, and then let the 2 buds right here, they're going to send out, that's the 2, I mean, it might be 2 down here, but say you got several buds here. So that next year's growth, each one of those is going to form canes coming out in different directions. And you can keep between 1 and 4 of those canes the next year after that. So say my 2 strongest canes I keep is this guy and this guy, and each of those you'll work your way up to 30 on each side. Or if I decided to keep 4, then each of those canes I would allow up to 15, so that goes no more than 60, so there's going to be 15 buds on each of these, and you're going to have more growing. But say I have, look at this guy right here. So during this year, I'm allowing these 2, and I've cut this one down to 2 buds, because that's going to, or say I have another one right here. Let's say 2 buds, okay. So when I prune that, when it gets to this shape, I'll tip it where there's 15 buds on each one. And that during that season, each of those buds is going to form out vines that's going to fruit, okay? So these are going to be your fruiting vines coming from that. And it's tipped off. And as those are fruiting and growing, these buds are going to start forming more canes. They're going to be wild. Okay, so that's the new ones. Where'd that go? So these are going to be growing in the meantime that these are fruiting. So the following year, the next year that I come in, I'm going to completely whack off these 4 fruiting ones, because they're done. Those will be completely eliminated. Those are gone. Okay. Where's my fruiting guy? Right here. Yeah. We're going to cut those off. And then I'm going to end up with these 1-year-old buds that grew from that previous year. And say I might have more than 4. There might be like 5 of them on each side. I'm only going to keep 4 of those. So say if there was 5 of these growing, depending on how many buds I kept, I'm only going to keep 4 of those 1-year-old growth. I'm going to be whacking away the ones that fruited the previous year, just completely remove them. And I might have some more that's formed here. So say these were the other 2 that I whacked off and only left the 4. So as these 4 the following year are going to start doing their fruiting, these new two buds that I've kept on these, say these were other canes that I cut back. So I've cut those back to 2 buds on each, and they're going to be forming canes while these are fruiting out. They'll be forming long canes, and I'll end up the next year after that cutting the ones that just fruited and choosing 2 on each side of the canes that grew the previous year, which will be called your 1-year-old wood or 1-year-old canes. And every year it's just going to be a repeat process. You're going to just keep 2 on each side, if that's the method that you want to use, 15 buds on each one, and allow several like maybe allow 4 additional canes that you'll cut back to the 2 buds, so you'll have plenty to choose from for the following year. And every year that you cut those back and you keep 2 on each side, and when you cut out the other ones, just make sure that you leave at least 2 buds from the other ones that you cut. That way every year it will keep giving you more canes to choose from. So that's cane pruning. All right, that's a quick tutorial on cane versus spur pruning. So in the coming weeks we'll get started on rebuilding this grape trellis. And also one other thing that I'm going to do is right here on this, sorry, there's a neighborhood kid that keeps going by on a 4-wheeler and it's really loud. I keep having to cut out, but this right here, I've not had a lot of luck growing stuff, and it is too close to this cherry tree. So I'm going to take this tunnel down. I've got plenty of other tunnels around, and I'm going to repurpose this material, all of these and these, and I'm going to make this. I have more cane prune varieties and spur prune varieties of grapes coming in the mail that I've ordered. So I'm going to turn this into 2 rows. That's going to be spaced a little bit further away from that cherry tree. 2 straight rows with these cattle panels and T-posts, and I'm going to make 2 more rows of grapevines going on that. So that's what's coming up in the future videos. That's all for now. Thanks for hanging out with me. Thanks for watching. Bye.